Welcome to the Schmoopydady streaming experience. I am your host, as per usual, Schmoopydady. This is the first time I'm watching this video. I'm a monthly Hearthstone Wild Legend player who typically hits Legend first of the month, and after that I goof off, and when I goof off I play your decks, and occasionally I do one of these meta videos to sort of showcase what's going on with Wild at the moment. To be honest, last couple balance patches haven't changed too much. Even nerfing Cursed Catacombs basically turned the best card in Discard Warlock into the best card in Discard Warlock. It was more of a side grade. I think builds haven't deviated as much as I expected post Catacombs nerf, but there's almost no movement at all anywhere else in the meta as far as the other changes that have happened. So let's go through the decks that are first sort of running the top of the meta, especially sort of the top of ladder. First and foremost is what we joke as the most unplayable OP deck ever. It is really good, but there are times where it feels bad. Extra large Call to Arms Paladin. I did a guide with Filterphobe on this deck, so if you're interested in how to play this deck, I suggest checking out my deck guide playlist. But functionally, what you're doing is you are trying to use Call to Arms Paladin to get some high-end minions out, like Crab Rider and Web Lord, and a big old taunt like Dirty Rat, and maybe it has Divine Shield because of Blood Matriarch Liadrin. Stick aboard Crusader's Aura, Flash Sale, Go Face. It's got anti-aggro tools like Showdown Beam, the classic combo. Toreth is an absolute house that allows you to put Divine Shield on things and then they just don't die. We already talked about the flex bots and stuff like that, but this is basically looking at a favorable matchup into decks that are good at the top of the meta. It's very good into Hostage Mage. It's very good into Seedlock. Those decks do not like having Weblord taxing their battle cries. It really sort of jams them up. And then you just start being aggressive. Against Discard Warlock, you've got Showdown Beam, you've got Tigress Plushie with Crusader Aura. You've got ways to fight for board, and you have ways to win from there. Sometimes you have games that don't feel like you did anything wrong and you just lost, or you just lose to jank randomly. That's kind of the curse that this deck has, where it's just, it's really, really, really good into a lot of stuff, and then sometimes you just catch a bad roll. And that can feel very bad to play, which is why a lot of people feel like, if you feel powerless in your losses, it can feel like a deck is bad. And so that's why we joke about it being unplayable. But in reality, this is probably the best deck in the meta. Second best deck in the meta. Stats-wise, it would tell you that it is something like Seedlock or something low sample size like Fatigue, Demon Hunter. But I think for my money, the next best deck in the meta is something like Seedlock. This is the Seedlock that Filterphobe and I played on stream. And I'm trying to remember, I think we cut the Shadow Blade. If you really wanted to go super hyper anti-aggro, the one other flex spot would be Hellfire. Hellfire in for the Slingers, I believe, was like the next crazy, like if you really wanted to just dunk on Discard Warlocks and Shadow Priests all day. I think that was the play, where it was like cut a Cataclysm or an Employee and go with double Hellfire, something like that. I don't know. Go watch the video. That's another deck guide video that we did. This does very well into the control piles that can handle Discard Warlock, and as well as doing very well into Discard Warlock itself and what little aggro is out there. And there's basically not enough combo to grief this deck. This deck also sports a great chance at beating Hostage Mage. If you see a bunch of Hostage Mages, the suggestion was get rid of Cataclysm, get rid of a Slinger, and add a Curse of Rafaam and a Rat to your deck, because that's how you beat Hostage Mage. Otherwise, you can also beat Hostage Mage just by doing, 10 mass productions every turn. If they don't have their loop set up, they might not have enough tools to stall it off. You're already sort of favored into stuff like Hostage Mage. So, you don't need the tech to beat it, but some people feel secure having it. This is another strong option for best deck in the Wild meta, just because, aside from its matchups against combo, which you sort of beat combo by putting a bunch of stats down and not really throwing down any tech W, this has a good shout for being one of the best decks. The next best deck, like if you look at stats wise, it's actually going to be something like Nazmani Priest. Nazmani Priest has continued to hold strong as being one of the best decks in the meta, especially off, at high level, at high MMR, where there aren't a lot of solutions to an early Nazmani Bloodweaver on 3. Even if you do remove it, they just bring it back with Animate Dead, and then they go on and they do their thing. It's really easy to assemble the combo. I am still peddling the Hunter package. I think the extra minion tutors are good, and Chillin' Vol'jin can be very, very good in a situation where you have 2 minions that need to go face. The APM isn't necessarily super taxing, but it's a nice little fail-safe for APM if you need to. Just like, let's just swap, more damage on the guy. Basically, you get the Nazmani Bloodweavers down. You get a way to make light speed in every card in your hand 0. You stick it on a Stone Tusk Boar. You go face. This is probably pretty good into... Call to Arms Paladin, because you don't quite deal with things soon enough. There's not quite enough disruption. It's sort of faster than you can get set up sometimes. And something like Trapdoor Spider isn't as big a deal if you just stick a Nazmani, because you just Animate Dead and bring it back. So this deck is probably sort of favored against Call to Arms Paladin. This deck is also probably sort of favored into Seedlock. If we're not doing anything to disrupt this, we're not exactly playing a lot of taunts in Seedlock, so this probably beats Seedlock pretty well too. The one sort of bugaboo as far as high meta goes is Hostage Mage. Hostage Mage sort of eats this deck's lunch. And Disco, it's probably sometimes fast enough to outpace Disco, but Disco is probably also sometimes challenging. Honestly, in the Disco matchup, you make a couple of Nazmani Bloodweavers and you give them all light speed, and you spam the light speed on all the copies. Make the trades you can and hope that you have enough health left. You might not even get to do the full combo, but it's probably like sort of an okay matchup, but still not one I'm probably comfortable playing. Hostage Mage. I have 2 Hostage Mage lists because I want to be totally upfront about Hostage Mage and how you construct it. I think there are, of all the meta decks, Hostage Mage is the most interesting from a deck builder's perspective. I think there are many, many ways to build Hostage Mage, and it's like the furthest thing from a perfect 40 that you could possibly find. For example, my take on Hostage Mage... I have the Romath and the ETC. I've been converted. I like Romath and the ETC. I like having a Sarah main deck. I like, I've been okay with 1 Robocaller, 1 Objection. I think I cut a Dirty Rat for a watercolor artist. You can see, or and Mezzadune for a second watercolor artist. So we have 2 of these and no Mezzadune. So you see, but if you're running Mezzadune, that's also okay. You just can't run the watercolor artists. It's all about what you're kind of comfortable with and the sort of loop that you want. A different take is how KVLT plays Hostage Mage. No rats. We're looping objections. I think I got this list. I think this list is KVLT's. I got it from May, who I believe got it from KVLT. Ysera is main deck with the with the Magister Dawn Grasp, which is not typical, but how KVLT likes to play it. No Theatar. Boom Pistol Bully is in the ETC for the mirror, so you're trying to basically loop lockout that way. But alternate, no rats, Ceaseless, just so we can go infinite with Ceaseless Romath, Ceaseless Romath, Ceaseless Romath, and just spam light speeds that way. Not light speeds, light shows. There you go. But different build. This build also works. No Xavius, running 2 Knick-Knack Shacks. So, I think there's a lot of cards you can chop and change, but the reality sticks that this deck definitely warps the meta, especially towards the top. It makes people change what they're playing because it's very good into certain decks. It's pretty good into Disco. If Disco starts making a giant tiny Knight of Evil, Sleet Skaters can kind of turn that into a nightmare for the opponent. If you stall them out, start getting to the point where you can start gaining armor with Solid Alibi up. Barrage eats through Solid Alibi, but when you start gaining armor and freezing board, there's not a lot they can do. You can also sort of just beat discard warlocks with combo at some point, tempo at some point. If you start bouncing Vardens, start bouncing Bobs, start going face, the game can end that way too. So, the top of the meta is basically these three decks. This is Knocking on the Door, but loses hard to Ice Block and Solid Alibi. And then we've got Discard Warlock, which is sort of the other deck that's warping the meta. Discard Warlock is sort of single-handedly pushing out all other varieties of aggro. And that's a bad thing because not only are you getting a less varied game experience when you are queuing into aggro, finally, but also it means that it's really an easy deck to target. Any deck that has life gain and removal can beat Discard Warlock and give it a hard time. It's usually favored. I'm going to start first by showing Nafane's list. This is what he personally plays near the top of Legend. You'll notice the Grim Rally is in here. You'll notice the Blood Treants. He says are experimental, but he's been enjoying them. Otherwise, a pretty standard list. We're basically cutting Fists, and we're cutting... I'm not sure what other spell. Not sure. But, it's a 25-card deck anyway. You can have some kind of crazy takes like what Sinferno is doing with, the Tamsin package with POs and the Curse of Agonies, and it'll kind of perform okay, and this kind of performs okay. I like Glowstones perfect, to be honest with you. Corbet's trying this sort of experimental version where he's going with the Spicy Projectionists because, again, that slot's, not great. Frenzied Fellwings, again, that slot's, not great. Gloomstone Guardians. I like running two of these, and in fact, NHL Fan had two of these in his list that I've featured previously. You never forge them. You just always discard two cards, and it's basically a 4-mana giant house plus whatever value you also get out of it. But the projections can get kind of spicy, especially late in the game when you start copying Expired Merchant. Another scam you could try is ETC with Tome Tampering in it. You can't hard run Tome Tampering. That's a dumb idea because you don't want to copy Tome Tampering. Where is it? You don't want to copy this card, but what you can do is run it in an ETC, and then, that ends up recycling the deck. You take your giant hand, you throw it into the deck, and then you can sort of tap your way to finding the rest of it. That can be very helpful against control decks if you find that you're gassing out too much. I'm usually ecstatic if I see, if I can take care of the ETC or if I can disrupt the ETC when I'm playing a discard Warlock as Odin Warrior, because one of the ways they can beat me is basically, copying 8 Soul Barrages, make them cost 1, and then always find them because they also copied Solarium, right? Against a slow deck, if you're playing the discard Warlock, you can kind of slow roll and set up maximum value. I kind of prefer it when it builds playing Furnace Fuel, but I also get why Furnace Fuel is not in either list right now. I just think it'd be pretty okay off of Cursed Catacombs. So Cursed Catacombs, the change is not killing the list, just sort of making it side grade. All right, we continue. Weirdness from the Brawl that the Brawl gave us. Druid is back. Now, what does Druid have that makes it back? Well, it's got removal. It's got life gain. Right? It's got life gain. So, yeah, it beats discard Warlocks. You can use Sleepy Resident as a Frost Nova against Disco, honestly. Druid plays a lot like Hostage Mage in a lot of ways. The win condition is slightly different, but still stands. That's the way it is. One of Sinferno's favorite things to do against Disco is actually freeze the board with Bob. They usually can't kill Bob. Shadow Reflections Bob, and then freeze the board again with Bob again the next turn. And progressively doing that very quickly nails down their life total. Or you could Shattered Reflections ANR and make a bunch of ANRs. Or you could take a ton of damage, sort of stabilize with armor, and then use Pendant of Earth and get life back with Ceaseless Expanse. Do I want to see more Druid on the ladder? No. But if you're struggling against Discard Warlock, I think this is another one of those. This deck is favored into that matchup. Maybe I'll get Sinferno on here sometime to talk about how to play this. Okay, now we're starting to get into like we've left like the top of the meta, and we're getting into the spicy stuff, right? So Sinferno, Mill Druid, I'm pretty confident it's a decent deck, but it's a spicy take. Copper Scum Control Rogue. This plays okay. He calls it Control Rogue. I would probably call it like mid range Rogue. Like you kind of win against aggro by kind of doing aggro but aggroing better and controlling the board and then going face. So you're kind of like, you're leveraging stuff like Cutlass Courier and Quick Pick and Metal Detector to kind of draw cards and establish more resources than your aggro opponent and then sort of beat them up. We've got a fair amount of life gain in the list. Grifta can get you life gain. We've got Ziliax, which you can tutor for cheaper with the Timeline Accelerator for life gain. We've got Shadowcaster Scabs, which we can cast earlier. If we do a Sandbox Scoundrel play the turn before, we can use the Mini and Bran to play this bad boy for 2 mana. So, like, you got options. You've got options as far as getting your life back. It also does pretty well into Hostage Mage because we've got Pirate Admiral Hook Tusk. If you've got Hook Tusk, you've got an out against Mage because you can find ways to make their lives a living hell. Grifta into Mage is also kind of funny because you can give them some pretty bad options that if, let's say they, for whatever reason, decide to play it, it's a problem for them. Big thing against Mage is just make sure that you are killing off 1/1s with Fillet Fighter and make sure you're leveraging Prize Plunderer to keep your hand size down. Otherwise, like, against combo, you're doing your best to just sort of spam Okani and Lothebs and just beat them with tempo. It's just a really cool deck. And the most fun turns are the Voltron Prime turns. Copper has been asked, Copper, do we really need this card? He describes this card as being like Lifebinder Alexstrasza, but a little bit more flexible and a little bit less mana. So if you think about it, you play Voltron for 4 because you've tutored it with Timeline Accelerator. You pick the damage option, you Shadow Step it, and you play it again. That's 8 mana, deal 16. Now, it's not sprayed all at face, right? It could go to minions, but sometimes that's better than all going face. Or all goes face, and you have a chance of finding lethal with the board you've got. That's ignoring the fact that, like, you're also getting +2/+1 to a random minion on the board. Something to keep in mind. This deck is just really cool. There's a lot of mana cheat. There's a lot of really complicated turns. If I'm feeling spicy, I might try to climb with this day 1. And then once I get past D5 and want to be super, super, super sure I'm going to beat the aggro deck, I might switch to like Odin Warrior. But this is fun and spicy, and you kind of have a chance into anything. In the spicy category, I am putting Malygos Druid, Dungar Druid, one of the meta tyrants that we've had previously. I'm actually going to be doing a deck guide video with KVLT on how to play this deck tomorrow, hopefully, if everything goes well. Used to run a Mirdrasil. KVLT is trying to innovate in that slot. Might go back to Mirdrasil. He's really not sure. This deck is just sort of one of those fun. If you're a combo head, definitely try it. It looks like it's so linear on the surface, but it never is. And I've said that a million times, so I'm not going to bore you. The Shattered Reflections ANR is looking very in vogue right now, but I know in the past this has been like, card number 29, which makes this card number 30. If you have other things that you want to slot in, New Heights apparently sucks. We'll talk about why tomorrow. Trail mixes the nuts. Don't cut it. Okay. For the budget boys, Elemental Mage. It won the low sample, high win rate Survivor. It continues to be a deck that I sort of dust off and I play and I have fun with. I sent the list that won Survivor over to one Martian Boo. He made a video on it, but he cut 2 cards. He cut the one of's the quick draw spell that is escaping me at the time, and the little like Living Flame 2 mana 3/2 Death Rattle Draw Fire spell. He cut that for 2 copies of Windswept Page Turner. I have liked the Page Turners in the list as like, just tempo it out. Just send it out there. Like, it doesn't have to stick. It's not a win con. But if they don't take care of it, it becomes a problem. You're still looking for draw. You're still looking for funny Inferno Herald turns. But it adds like a little bit of extra heft to the list. A list that already wins a lot with tempo. This deck is, I think, like pound for pound, the best win rate you can get for amount of dust spent in the format. I'm not saying that it's like, you know, someone's going to hit rank 1 with it or it's even top tier material, but like I think it does just like pretty well. And it's fun because it's got a little bit of an RNG aspect, and it's just a solid craft for anybody who's like, I can't spend a lot of dust in Wild. What do I play? Play this. Highly suggest it. Another thing that has overperformed my expectation, I finally changed the title of this deck from I swear it's a good deck to Rain Man. Rain Man cooked on this one. 30 cards, Forbidden Sequence deck. On the combo turn, you're basically trying to complete the quest very quickly, which you can do. We have a ton of high-quality discovers. That's not a problem. You play your weapon, you play ETC, you pick Archmage Antonidas. Now, there is some debate as to whether or not the order you put these in matters. I was told at first it does. Now I know that it probably doesn't. I haven't confirmed myself, but Rain Man's played enough games. He's like, no, it's randomized, you idiot. I'm like, okay, fine. So if it comes out in the good order, you get Talon, and then you get Thad. Tony costs 1, but when you throw him down, Fireballs cost 0. That's the good order. The bad order is Thad comes out first, then Talon. Antonidas still costs 1, and all the Fireballs cost 1. If that's what happens, and you get Thad before Talon, that's where you play buy 1, get 1 freeze on Chadius. Once you've done that, now both Tony and all his Fireballs will cost 0. So, good order, this, then this. You can just Tony and win. Bad order is this, then this. You've got to have enough mana to also cast buy 1, get 1 freeze. I mean, this can happen as early as turn 5. I found 7 or turn 8 was pretty consistent for me. Solid deck if you have the cards. People have been asking me, Shmoo, should I craft this? I think people are desperate to play any kind of deck with the Forbidden Sequence or just like some sort of new card in it. It feels very fad-y to me. I'm not saying that this is a bad deck. Far from it. It's a fantastic cook. But I have a tough time suggesting this for anyone who's like super in like a, you know, they're hard up on their dust. They're not sure what they want to craft, if this is going to be worth it. If this is the style of deck you enjoy, I suggest it. It's very fun. It absolutely functions. It's on the spicy end as far as like, well, Schmoopy, I really need to get to Legend 2. I don't know if I'd necessarily go with this list. I need to see more performance over a longer period of time, and it feels like the kind of deck where it's going to be hard to judge that because the minute we get new cards, this will kind of be forgotten and drop by the wayside, except for the few people that really love the deck. So, like, do you have to craft this? I don't know. I find it a little bit suspect. But I love the deck, and I think it's very good. Beast Hunter. I know Zach has kind of fallen out of love with his deck, but I still think it's a phenomenal deck. I think Beast Hunter in general as an archetype is underplayed. I think we've looked at getting rid of Beast Stalker Tavish at this point to place something else in his place. I forget what. You could try an RC Rampage probably. If you don't have Beastalker Tavish, RC Rampage is probably fine in this. I know Zach was also sort of looking at locations, possibly putting in the locations for this. The Pew Pew ones for the number beasts in there, but I forget what was getting the cut. In any case, cool deck. Cool build. I'll have to ask Zach at some point for his really updated build. But I think there's something there for Hunter. Nobody plays Hunter. Nobody's refining Hunter. But there are people who play Reno Hunter in like the top 50, top 25 at times. Like it's a playable class. It's just nobody's playing it. Last but not least, I'm going to include my Odin Warrior. This is the third deck that I currently have a guide to. It's me yapping for 36 minutes straight on how to play this and my card choices. Didn't include any gameplay video. There's a hell of enough of that on the channel if you know where to look. I did get a 12-win Brawl run with this deck. The place for this deck, and if you like it, is if you're seeing all aggro, this is one of the best anti-aggro decks I've ever played. And it's a cook of my own, so I enjoy it. If you're stuck with like a bunch of, a mix where it's a bunch of piles or there's combo, it's really not supposed to beat combo. It's supposed to just plow through aggro. So if you're in a sea of discard warlocks and shadow priests and whatever other jank aggro surrounding you, this is great for that. This is going to make me hit. I'm going to hit legend with this probably next month. Once I hit D5, I'm going to switch to this and just cruise. Because I'm going to be seeing all aggro decks that have gotten to basically the same point I have that day. So if you don't like discard warlock or you want to just punk them, I suggest this deck. It can beat piles. You do need to sort of play smart around disruption. It is tough beating mages. That's why we have an ETC with Tight-Lipped Witness. Honestly, I've talked about just removing the ETC from the list altogether and playing your next favorite card, like Ricaro the Valorious. Is Replicator Nader still banned? No? Unlucky. I hate this card. I think this card complicates your deck so much. It complicates your all-you-can-eats by drawing a mech. If you're running Replicator Nader, you cut the Eternium Rovers and you do something else. I don't think you necessarily need to go for the huge amount of armor because, like, you're probably not beating Holy Wrath. Seedlocks you can beat just fine without this. You can gain armor either on a big skipper turn or a double armor smith turn. That usually buys you enough time, and they're usually not trying to disrupt you at the same time. So, like, this is my last deck that I would add in my meta, sort of meta snapshot because I did do well with it, and it's the last one I suggest because I don't know how good this deck really is because I feel like I'm good with it. And I might get a little overperformance with it than, let's say, somebody who doesn't have as many games as I do. So if you're interested in how to play it, please check my little guide before you try, just to give you some tips and tricks. All right, so long story short, too long, tuned out, didn't watch most of it. Best decks towards the top. Cult Arms Paladin, Seedlock, some flavor of Hostage Mage. Not great for climbing because the games are sort of long. Nazmani Priest, solid top tier deck, sort of knocking on the door of these. Much faster games if you wanted to climb. Discard Warlock, kind of in the doldrums, kind of like perma tier 2. It gets bullied too much to ever really crack tier 1, even if it's super popular and even if it's super cheap. You can bully it with something like Mill Druid or Control Rogue. Malygos Druid struggles with it, but Malygos Druid has been good for a long time. Elemental Mage can kind of go toe-to-toe with Disco. I think because it makes such big bodies that it soaks up the barrage turns, and you can have the big board swings too. For combo decks, if you really like a funky combo, we've got Rain Man's Forbidden Sequence. Beast Hunter is still Beast Hunter, and we've got an anti-aggro hate option as well. If you enjoy this content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing on my YouTube channel. I have a sneaking suspicion that sometime soon, I don't know when, we're going to get mini set news or mini set cards are coming soon. So this is probably the last time I do any kind of meta anything until we get mini set cards. And then it's probably going to be a couple days to see if anything changes the mini set. Then you hear from me with one of these reports again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.